The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Where it was, their ego shall be. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. The ego is not master in its own house. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of the rock. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. A person who feels guilty is not necessarily guilty. Love and work. Work and love, that's all there is. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. The interpretation of our dreams may be considered as the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. The goal of all life is death. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. The mind is like a parachute, it only functions when it is open. Everywhere I go I find a poet has been there before me. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. The psychoanalysis of individual human beings, however, teaches us with quite special insistence that the God of each of them is formed in the likeness of his Father, that his personal relation to God depends on his relation to his Father in the flesh, and that no other God can replace him. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other, and to a greater or lesser extent. The mind is wonderful and powerful, but it is limited by its own structure and biases. The interpretation of the present in terms of the past is not only a necessity in the study of history, but is also a vital necessity in the understanding of the present. One is very crazy when in love.